Get this thing out of my first-class cabin before I call the police." The words hit like a slap. Jessica, the blonde flight attendant, stood over Maya with arms crossed, her voice dripping venom. Other passengers froze mid-conversation. Phones appeared instantly, capturing what everyone sensed would explode online within hours. Maya Chen Williams sat motionless in seat 2A. Her black Hermes briefcase rested beside expensive financial documents. She wore a $3,000 tailored suit that screamed executive power. Yet Jessica treated her like she'd crawled aboard from the street. "Ma'am, you're obviously in the wrong section," Jessica announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. "These seats are for paying passengers only." A businessman in 1B started live streaming on TikTok. The viewer count climbed: 50, 200, 500 people watching in real time as another black woman faced public humiliation. These real-life stories of discrimination become viral black stories overnight. But touching stories like this one hide brutal truths, because sometimes the person being underestimated isn't the victim everyone thinks they're watching. Maya's fingers drummed once against her armrest, a subtle rhythm that seemed almost predatory. Have you ever witnessed someone pick the absolute worst possible target? Maya's response would make American Airlines wish this flight had never taken off. Flight 447, departure, T-minus 8 minutes. Jessica wasn't done. Her voice carried across the cabin like a whip crack. "Security! We have a situation in first class!" She positioned herself over Maya like a predator marking territory. Her blonde hair caught the overhead lights as she gestured theatrically for the cameras already recording. "I don't know how you snuck past boarding, but this charade ends now," Jessica hissed, speaking slowly like Maya was mentally deficient. "First class is for legitimate passengers who actually belong here." The businessman in 1B had gone live on TikTok. Viewer count exploded: 800, 1,000, 500, 2,800 people watching in real time. Comments flooded the screen. "Here we go again. Get her, Jessica. This girl about to go viral." But Maya sat motionless as granite. Her breathing never changed. Only her fingers moved, a subtle drumming pattern against her armrest that seemed almost methodical, like someone counting down to something. T-minus 7 minutes. 2 gate agents materialized at the aircraft door, their faces stern with authority. Behind them, an airline supervisor clutched his radio, barking orders about passenger compliance issues. "Ma'am," the lead gate agent announced loud enough for everyone to hear, "we need you to gather your belongings and move to your assigned coach seat immediately." Maya's black American Express Centurion card flashed as she adjusted her purse, the kind of card that requires a $10,000 annual fee and personal invitation. The businessman filming caught it on camera, but the significance went unnoticed. Her phone buzzed. "Urgent. Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. Need your acquisition report. Flight delayed. David Chen, CFO Goldman Sachs." Maya's thumb hovered over the reply button. Instead, she powered the phone down completely. The gesture sent a chill through observant passengers who turns off their phone during a crisis. T-minus 6 minutes. "This is absolutely ridiculous!" Jessica's voice climbed to near hysteria. "Look at her! Does she look like she belongs in a $4,000 seat?" The words detonated like a bomb. Even hardened business travelers winced. Jessica had crossed from poor service into overt racism, all captured in 4K resolution by a dozen phones. 2 security officers pushed through the aircraft door. The lead officer, a barrel-chested man with dead eyes, had clearly prejudged the situation before hearing facts. "All right, what's the problem here?" He looked directly at Maya, assumption written across his face. The TikTok stream now had 4,200 viewers. Comments became a torrent. This about to get real. Maya about to snap. Someone gonna get fired. But Maya remained eerily calm. She reached into her Hermes briefcase, past documents marked Confidential Merger Acquisition, and withdrew her boarding pass with surgical precision. T-minus 5 minutes. "Here's my boarding pass," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Seat 2A. First class. Properly purchased and assigned." The security officer examined it, his confidence evaporating. The document was legitimate, more than legitimate. It showed a boarding pattern of constant first-class travel, upgrade confirmations, and elite status markers. Jessica's face flushed crimson. "I don't care what that paper says. Look at her. She obviously doesn't belong—" "Ma'am," the security officer interrupted, suddenly uncomfortable. The legal implications were crystallizing in his mind, but Jessica was past rational thought. "I've been flying for 12 years. I know when someone's trying to scam their way into first class. These people always—" She caught herself, but too late. The phrase, "these people," hung in the air like toxic gas. Maya's phone, though powered down, somehow buzzed anyway. A special emergency override, the kind only available to certain levels of corporate elite. She ignored it completely. T-minus 4 minutes. The aircraft supervisor, sweating despite the air conditioning, pushed forward. "Ma'am, in the interest of time, perhaps you'd accept a complimentary upgrade on your next flight if you'd just—" "No." Maya's voice cut through his diplomatic rambling like a blade. The single word carried such quiet authority that conversation stopped. Business executives looked up from laptops. Even Jessica paused mid-gesture. Maya's briefcase contained something else. Multiple boarding passes from recent flights. All first class. All major airlines. Evidence of someone who traveled at the highest levels regularly. Her Patek Philippe watch caught the light as she checked the time. A $180,000 timepiece that most people couldn't identify, but those who could were already questioning their assumptions. T-minus 3 minutes. "This is unacceptable!" Jessica shrieked, her professional mask completely shattered. "I will not have my authority undermined by someone who clearly doesn't belong in my cabin." The supervisor's radio crackled. "Gate 47, corporate wants immediate status update. We have media calls coming in about social media footage." Too late. The TikTok stream had exploded to 8,100 viewers. Screenshots flooded Twitter. The hashtag American Airlines Racism began trending in real time. Maya finally looked up. Her eyes met Jessica's with a gaze that made grown executives uncomfortable in boardrooms. There was something predatory there. Intelligence mixed with barely contained power. "Jessica," Maya said quietly, reading the flight attendant's name tag, "you might want to reconsider your next words very carefully." The threat was delivered so softly that passengers had to strain to hear it, but the tone calm, assured, almost pitying sent ice through Jessica's veins. Something was wrong. This wasn't how these confrontations usually went. T-minus 2 minutes, Maya's phone, still powered down, somehow came alive with an incoming call. The caller ID flashed briefly. Blackstone Capital, emergency line. She declined the call without explanation. The businessman filming zoomed in on Maya's face. She looked almost amused, like a chess master watching an opponent walk into checkmate. "Ma'am," the security officer said, his voice now uncertain, "perhaps we can resolve this quietly." Maya smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Resolution is coming," she said, "very soon." T-minus 90 seconds to departure, Jessica snapped. Completely, utterly snapped. "I don't care who's recording. I don't care who's watching." Her voice cracked with hysteria as she jabbed her finger inches from Maya's face. "You do not belong in my first-class cabin." The aircraft supervisor's radio exploded. "Gate 47, we have news vans pulling up. CNN and Fox are requesting immediate statements about viral discrimination footage." But Jessica was beyond reason. 12 years of minimal authority had been challenged, and she was going down swinging. "Security! Arrest her!" Jessica screamed, spittle flying. "She's trespassing! She's disrupting federal aviation!" Maya remained motionless as stone. But something flickered behind her eyes. A predator calculating distance and timing. The TikTok stream hit 23,800 viewers. Comments exploded. "Jessica about to get fired." Maya too calm. "Something coming. World star moment incoming. T-minus 60 seconds. 2 more security officers pushed through the aircraft door. Now 4 uniformed men surrounded Maya's seat, classic intimidation tactics designed to make anyone comply through sheer physical pressure. "Ma'am," the lead officer barked, "you have 30 seconds to gather your belongings and exit this aircraft voluntarily, or we will remove you by force." Maya's phone buzzed with an emergency override. Robert Martinez, CEO, American Airlines, URGENT. She glanced at the screen, then, with deliberate slowness, she removed the battery completely. The gesture sent ice through the cabin. Who ignores CEO calls during a crisis? Captain Hayes emerged from the cockpit, his face grim. 30 years of flying had taught him to recognize when situations spiraled beyond recovery. "What's the delay?" he demanded. Jessica rushed toward him like a drowning woman. "Captain! This passenger is refusing lawful orders. She's endangering flight safety." Hayes looked at Maya, sitting calmly amid 4 security officers, surrounded by recording phones, clearly outnumbered and cornered. T-minus 30 seconds. Point of no return. "Ma'am," Captain Hayes addressed Maya directly, "I'm going to need you to cooperate so we can resolve this situation." Maya finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Captain, what specific federal regulation am I violating?" The question hung in the air like a legal landmine. Hayes knew aviation law. He also knew they were walking into a massive lawsuit on camera. But Jessica was past caring about lawsuits. "Just remove her. She doesn't belong here. Look at her." The lead security officer reached for Maya's arm. That's when everything changed. Maya's hand moved faster than human reflexes should allow. She caught the officer's wrist in a grip that made him grunt in pain, her fingers finding pressure points with surgical precision. "Don't touch me." Each word carried the weight of controlled violence. The officer tried to pull away. Maya's grip tightened. His face went white as nerve pressure shot up his arm. "Jesus," someone whispered. "She's not just calm. She's dangerous." Departure. Officially delayed. The gate agent's voice crackled over intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 447 is delayed indefinitely due to a passenger security situation." Chaos erupted. Connecting flights were missed. Business deals fell apart in real time. The ripple effect spread through American Airlines' entire network. Maya released the security officer, who stumbled backward, clutching his wrist. But she remained seated, hands folded, as if nothing had happened. The TikTok viewer count exploded. 47,200, 52,800, 61,300 people watching live, As Maya demonstrated, she was nobody's victim. The corporate meltdown begins. A woman in an expensive suit rushed onto the aircraft, clearly crisis management from corporate headquarters. She took one look at the scene and grabbed the supervisor's radio. "This is Sarah Chen, VP Customer Relations. I need immediate executive escalation, now." Maya's head turned sharply at the surname Chen. For the first time, genuine emotion crossed her face, a mix of recognition and cold amusement. "Small world," Maya murmured. Sarah Chen noticed Maya's reaction. She studied Maya's face, then went pale as recognition dawned. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. You're Maya Chen Williams." The corporate panic was instantaneous. Sarah grabbed Captain Hayes, whispering urgently in his ear. Whatever she said made him step backward like he'd been slapped. "We need to clear this aircraft immediately," Sarah announced. "Everyone except essential personnel off the plane." Now, the social media tsunami #American Airlines assault was trending worldwide. The footage of Maya's defensive move had been screen-recorded and was spreading faster than wildfire. But eagle-eyed viewers were noticing details. The expensive briefcase, the way corporate executives were reacting to her name, the surgical precision of her defensive technique. Comments shifted. "Who is this girl?" ! "Maya got hands." "Corporate people scared." "Why?" "Someone do a background check." Financial Twitter was waking up. Aviation industry insiders were making calls. The story was evolving beyond simple discrimination into something much larger. The cornering moment. Jessica, oblivious to the corporate panic around her, made one final desperate play. She positioned herself directly in front of Maya, blocking any exit route. "I don't care who you think you are. You're not leaving this plane until you admit you don't belong in first class." 4 security officers, corporate executives, cameras recording every angle. Maya was physically cornered with nowhere to go. This was the moment everyone expected her to break, to cry, to beg for mercy. Instead, Maya reached into her briefcase. She withdrew a single document and placed it on her tray table where cameras could capture it. The letterhead read, "Blackstone Capital, Merger and Acquisition Division." Captain Hayes squinted at the document. His face went from pale to green. "Sweet Jesus," he breathed. Sarah Chen looked over his shoulder. She nearly collapsed. The predator reveals her teeth. Maya stood slowly, gracefully, like a panther rising from rest. Despite being surrounded, despite being outnumbered, despite being recorded from every angle, she somehow commanded the space. "Jessica," Maya said softly, "do you know what Blackstone Capital is?" Jessica's confidence wavered for the first time. What does that matter?" Maya's smile was arctic. "Blackstone manages $649 billion in assets. We're the largest alternative investment firm in the world." The cabin fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. "We own 12% of American Airlines stock. We hold your corporate debt. We financed your last 3 aircraft purchases." Jessica's face went white as Maya continued. "In approximately 18 hours, I'm presenting a merger proposal to your board of directors. A proposal that will determine whether American Airlines survives the next fiscal quarter." Maya paused, letting the implications sink in. "And you, Jessica, have just provided me with the most compelling argument against that merger that I could have possibly imagined." The moment of recognition. Every corporate executive on the aircraft was now frantically making phone calls. The supervisor's radio crackled with increasingly urgent messages from headquarters. Maya's phone, despite having no battery, somehow powered on with an emergency signal. The screen lit up with a single message. Urgent. Board meeting moved to 6 a.m. tomorrow. Need immediate damage control. Robert Martinez, CEO. Maya looked at the message, then at the cameras still recording. Damage control, she repeated thoughtfully. Yes, I think that's exactly what's needed here. She turned to face Jessica directly. The question is, damage control for whom? The silent strike. Maya reached for her phone with surgical precision. Her fingers moved across the screen with the confidence of someone who'd made similar calls before, calls that moved markets, toppled executives, reshaped entire industries. She dialed a number from memory. No hesitation. One ring. Code red. Flight 447. Initiate Protocol 7. 4 words that somehow carried the weight of corporate apocalypse. She hung up and returned to her documents as if nothing had happened. 30 seconds later, every communication device in the aircraft erupted simultaneously. The gate agent's radio. Priority override. Clear aircraft immediately. Captain Hayes's phone. Emergency corporate directive report to operations now. Sarah Chen's device. Crisis team activated. Your presence required immediately. The response was so swift, so coordinated, that passengers looked around in genuine confusion. What kind of person could trigger this level of institutional panic with a single phone call? The corporate earthquake begins. Sarah Chen's phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and physically recoiled. David Chen, managing director. Her hands shook as she answered. Uncle David? I'm handling a passenger situation and… Whatever David Chen said made Sarah's face cycle through confusion, recognition, and pure horror. She's here. On the aircraft. She's been here the entire time. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. She hung up and stared at Maya with the expression of someone who'd just learned they'd been playing chess with a grandmaster while thinking it was checkers. Maya looked up from her financial reports. David sends his regards, I assume. You're… Sarah's voice cracked. You're Maya Chen Williams, senior partner, transportation acquisitions, guilty as charged. The first domino. Captain Hayes approached Maya like she was unexploded ordnance. Ma'am, I'm receiving urgent messages about your relationship with our company. Maya set down her papers with deliberate care. Captain Hayes, are you familiar with American Airlines' capital structure? I fly planes, ma'am. I don't handle finances. Of course. Let me explain. Maya opened her briefcase, revealing documents that made financial executives nervous. American Airlines currently carries $4.7 billion in long-term debt. She pulled out a bound report marked Confidential, Blackstone Capital. Blackstone holds approximately 63% of that debt through various subsidiary arrangements. Your aircraft leases, maintenance, financing, fuel hedging contracts, all flowing through Blackstone-controlled entities. Hayes's face went pale as the implications sank in. In simple terms, Captain, Blackstone doesn't just have influence over American Airlines. We essentially own American Airlines' ability to operate. The phone call. Maya's device buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen. Robert Martinez, CEO. Instead of answering immediately, she looked around the cabin at the cameras still recording, the passengers listening, the crew members frozen in fear. This should be interesting, she murmured, then answered on speaker. Hello, Robert. Martinez's voice carried barely controlled panic. Maya, please tell me the viral footage I'm watching isn't my senior partner being discriminated against by my employees. Well, Robert, that would depend on your definition of discrimination. Maya, for the love of, we have the merger presentation tomorrow morning. The board is expecting your recommendation. Maya's expression remained neutral, but her voice carried a new edge. Robert, I think you mean the board was expecting my recommendation. The past tense hit the cabin like a physical blow. Maya, please. Whatever happened, we can fix this. We can make this right. Maya looked directly at Jessica, who was now hyperventilating against the galley wall. Can you, Robert? Can you really fix a corporate culture that enables racial profiling as standard operating procedure? The full revelation. Maya ended the call and stood, commanding the cabin's attention without raising her voice. Since everyone seems curious about my identity, let me clarify a few things. She walked to the center of first class, her presence somehow making the space feel smaller despite her modest height. My name is Maya Chen Williams, Harvard Law, Corporate Discrimination Specialization, Senior Partner at Blackstone Capital, where I manage our transportation and infrastructure portfolio. Maya paused, letting the weight of her credentials settle. For the past 18 months, I've been conducting field research on systemic discrimination in the airline industry, not for lawsuits, for investment decisions. She gestured to the cameras still recording. Every interaction, every microaggression, every instance of bias has been documented and analyzed. Jessica's legs gave out. She slumped against the wall, finally understanding the magnitude of her mistake. But here's what makes today special, Maya continued, her voice growing colder. American Airlines has been courting Blackstone for a merger worth $2.8 billion, a merger that would prevent their bankruptcy. She turned to Captain Hayes. Captain, without that merger, what's American Airlines' projected lifespan? Hayes looked like he might vomit. 6, maybe 8 months before we'd need to file for Chapter 11. Precisely. The psychological dismantling. Maya returned to her seat and calmly began organizing her documents. The psychological effect was devastating. She'd just revealed the power to destroy a Fortune 500 company and was treating it like routine paperwork. The fascinating thing about discrimination, Maya said conversationally, is how it reveals institutional values. Jessica's behavior wasn't aberrant, it was enabled. She looked up from her papers. How many other Maya Chen Williams have been profiled on American Airlines flights? How many just didn't have the power to fight back? Jessica found her voice. I didn't know who you were. How could I have known? Maya's response was delivered with surgical precision. Jessica, that's exactly the problem. You treated me badly because you thought I was powerless. You would have treated me well if you'd known I had power. She let that sink in. That's not customer service. That's selective oppression based on perceived vulnerability. The financial demolition. Maya's tablet chimed with real-time market alerts. She glanced at the screen and smiled, not pleasantly. Interesting. American Airlines stock is down 2.7% in after-hours trading. That's approximately $600 million in market cap evaporation. She showed the screen to Captain Hayes. Your stock price doesn't lie, Captain. The market is already pricing in the risk of losing Blackstone's support. Sarah Chen was frantically texting on multiple devices, clearly coordinating damage control efforts across corporate hierarchies. Social media engagement is also fascinating, Maya continued, scrolling through analytics. #American Airlines. Racism has generated 1.4 million interactions in 38 minutes. She pulled up video analytics. The footage has been viewed 2.3 million times across platforms. CNN picked it up 17 minutes ago. The Washington Post is preparing a feature story. Maya looked directly at the cameras still recording. This is what institutional discrimination costs in the modern era. Not just morally, financially. The strategic mind. Maya's phone buzzed with another call. James Morrison, board chairman. She let it ring twice before answering. Establishing dominance through controlled timing. James. Morrison's voice cracked with desperation. Maya, I'm watching our stock price crater in real time. We need to discuss immediate damage control. James, I think you're misunderstanding the situation. What do you mean? Maya's voice carried the authority of someone who'd orchestrated corporate restructuring worth billions. You're assuming this is a public relations problem that can be managed with apologies and policy changes. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the tarmac where news vans were beginning to gather. This isn't a PR crisis, James. This is a fundamental assessment of whether American Airlines possesses the institutional values that Blackstone requires in business partners. Morrison's desperation was audible. Maya, one employee's mistake shouldn't invalidate. One employee? Maya's laugh was cold as winter wind. James, this involved your flight attendants, gate agents, security personnel, and ground supervisors. This was systematic discrimination operating as standard procedure. She paused, building tension like a master conductor. The question isn't whether Jessica made a mistake. The question is whether American Airlines has demonstrated the kind of ethical foundation that justifies a $2.8 billion investment. The moment of truth. Maya returned to her seat and began packing her briefcase with deliberate efficiency. I was planning to recommend full merger approval to the Blackstone board tomorrow morning, she said conversationally. Past tense, James, was planning. Morrison's voice carried pure panic. Maya, please, be reasonable. We can change. We can do better. Maya snapped her briefcase closed with finality. James, institutional change takes years. American Airlines has months. The math doesn't work. She stood and walked toward the aircraft exit, then paused beside Jessica. I want you to understand something, Maya said quietly. This was never personal. This was about a system that enabled your behavior and encouraged your assumptions. Jessica looked up with tears streaming down her face. But systems need faces, Jessica. And today, you became the face of American Airlines' institutional discrimination. Maya continued toward the exit, then stopped one final time. The merger proposal included provisions for comprehensive bias training, diversity initiatives, and cultural transformation. Those provisions would have protected employees from making career-ending mistakes. She looked back at Jessica with something that might have been pity. Unfortunately, those protections just became irrelevant. Maya stepped off the aircraft, leaving behind a company watching its future disappear in real time. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Jessica's quiet sobbing and the distant hum of news helicopters circling overhead. American Airlines Executive Conference Room, 6 a.m. emergency board session. The conference room felt like a morgue. Chairman James Morrison sat at the head of the table, his usually pristine appearance disheveled from a sleepless night. Around the mahogany table, board members connected via emergency video conference looked equally haggard. The main screen displayed a real-time stock ticker. American Airlines down 14.7% in pre-market trading. Before Maya arrives, Morrison announced, his voice hoarse. "I want everyone to understand what we're facing. In 18 hours, we've lost $1.9 billion in market capitalization." CEO Robert Martinez pulled up devastating metrics. Booking cancellations up 847%. Corporate contracts canceled, worth $73 million annually. And United just poached 3 of our major routes while we're dealing with this crisis. The door opened. Maya Chen Williams entered like she owned the building, which, financially speaking, she essentially did. She wore a black Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. But it was her expression that made seasoned executives shift uncomfortably. The cold confidence of someone holding all the cards. "Gentlemen," Maya said, setting her briefcase on the table with deliberate precision, "I trust you've had time to review the damage assessment, the brutal reality check." Maya connected her tablet to the room's system, the main screen filled with data that made board members visibly wince. "Let's start with something simple," Maya said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd destroyed companies before. "Public relations impact. Click, #, American Airlines. Racism, 8.3 million engagements. Video views, 23.7 million across all platforms. International coverage in 47 countries." Another click. Congressional response: Senator Warren is calling for DOT investigation. The House Transportation Committee has scheduled hearings. The NAACP is organizing a boycott. Maya looked around the table. But here's my favorite statistic. Customer confidence among Black travelers has dropped 73%. That demographic represents $340 million in annual revenue. CFO David Kim tried to interrupt. "Maya, surely we can—" "I'm not finished, David." The ice in her voice silenced him instantly. "The financial execution." Maya clicked to a new slide that made every executive in the room go pale. "Your debt structure is fascinating. $4.7 billion across various instruments. Blackstone controls 63% of that debt through subsidiary arrangements." She pulled up a complex web diagram showing financial relationships. "Your aircraft leases, maintenance contracts, fuel hedging, gate agreements, all flowing through Blackstone-controlled entities. We don't just hold your debt, gentlemen. We hold your operational capacity." Morrison's voice cracked. "Maya, what are you saying?" Maya's smile could have flash-frozen water. "I'm saying that with a single phone call, I can ground your entire fleet by calling in debt obligations, canceling lease agreements, and terminating operational contracts." She let that sink in. "You're not just facing bankruptcy, James. You're facing immediate cessation of operations. The personal stakes." Maya stood and walked to the window, then turned back with predatory grace. "But let's make this personal, shall we?" She pulled out individual files for each board member. "James, your pension is tied to American Airlines stock performance. At current share prices, you've lost $2.3 million in retirement value since yesterday." Morrison's face went ashen. "Robert, your employment contract has a liquidation clause. If the company files for bankruptcy, you personally owe $4.7 million in accelerated compensation clawbacks." Martinez looked like he might vomit. "David, your family's trust fund is heavily invested in airline sector derivatives. Industry-wide losses are affecting your children's college funds." Maya continued around the table, delivering personalized financial devastation to each board member. "This isn't just corporate crisis, gentlemen. This is personal financial ruin for each of you. The psychological warfare." Maya returned to her seat and opened a leather portfolio. "Now let's discuss my merger recommendation." She held up a document stamped Confidential, Blackstone Investment Committee. The recommendation reads, immediate divestment of all American Airlines holdings. Pursue hostile acquisition of assets through bankruptcy proceedings. The silence was deafening. The investment committee voted unanimously this morning. We're not just rejecting the merger. We're positioning to acquire your company's assets at liquidation prices. Morrison slammed his fist on the table. This is corporate terrorism. One employee's mistake doesn't justify destroying an entire company. Maya's laugh was sharp as broken glass. One employee? James, let me show you something. She pulled up security footage from yesterday, not just from the aircraft, but from throughout the terminal. Gate agent participated in discrimination. Security officers enabled racial profiling. Supervisor escalated without investigation. Ground crew stood by and watched. The footage played in brutal detail, showing systematic failure at every level. This wasn't one employee, James. This was institutional culture in action. The ultimatum. Maya stood and walked to the presentation screen, commanding the room's attention. However, I'm prepared to offer American Airlines one final opportunity. Every head snapped toward her, apt. Blackstone will restructure your debt obligations and provide bridge financing to prevent bankruptcy. Morrison leaned forward desperately. What are your terms? Maya's smile was arctic. Complete corporate restructuring under Blackstone oversight. New executive leadership. Mandatory bias training for all employees. Third-party monitoring of customer interactions. She clicked to detailed terms. Executive compensation caps. Public diversity reporting. Anonymous discrimination reporting systems. CFO Kim studied the numbers. Maya, these terms are harsh. They're survival, David. Take them or liquidate. The personal reckoning. Maya pulled out another file. Let's address the elephant in the room. Personnel consequences. She opened to specific employee records. Jessica Williams, flight attendant. Terminated for cause, effective immediately. Forfeiture of pension benefits. Industry blacklist recommended. Morrison started to object, but Maya continued. Gate Agent Thompson, terminated. Security Officer Reynolds, terminated. Ground Supervisor Martinez, terminated. She looked around the table. Zero tolerance means zero tolerance, gentlemen. Martinez found his voice. Maya, that's 4 families destroyed over one incident. 4 careers ended because they chose discrimination over professionalism, Maya corrected coldly. How many minority passengers have they mistreated when cameras weren't rolling? The power play. Maya returned to her briefcase and withdrew a thick contract. This is a corporate accountability agreement. Sign it, and Blackstone provides the financing to keep you operational. She slid the document across the table to Morrison. Page 12 details my personal role going forward. I'll serve as special advisor for corporate culture, reporting directly to your board. My recommendations will be binding. Morrison's hands shook as he read. Maya, this essentially makes you in charge of ensuring this never happens again. Yes. Maya's voice carried absolute authority. I'll have veto power over senior hiring, oversight of customer service protocols, and direct access to operational data. She leaned forward. Think of me as your corporate conscience, James. The voice that asks whether your decisions reflect the values you claim to hold. The final choice. Maya packed her briefcase with clinical efficiency. You have until market close today to decide. Sign the agreement, or Blackstone begins hostile acquisition proceedings tomorrow morning. She walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and gentlemen, if you're thinking about fighting this decision through legal channels, remember that I hold a JD from Harvard. Corporate law is my specialty. Maya opened the door. I've dismantled companies much larger than American Airlines. Don't test me. Morrison called out desperately. Maya, wait. What guarantee do we have that you won't just destroy us anyway? Maya turned back with something that might have been amusement. James, if I wanted to destroy American Airlines, I would have done it yesterday. What I want is transformation. She looked around the table at the broken executives. The question is whether you're smart enough to choose evolution over extinction. Maya walked out, leaving behind a room full of men watching their world collapse in real time. The only sound was the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant clicking of keyboards as assistants calculated the true cost of institutional discrimination. American Airlines Corporate Plaza, 2:30 p.m. The reckoning begins. Jessica Williams sat in the parking lot outside American Airlines headquarters, staring at the cardboard box containing 12 years of her career. Her company ID badge, coffee mug with "World's Best Flight Attendant," and a photo from her first day, all reduced to debris from a life that no longer existed. Her phone buzzed with a notification. Your final paycheck has been deposited. Pension benefits have been forfeited due to termination for cause. Inside the building, Maya Chen Williams watched from the 23rd floor as security escorted the last of the terminated employees to their cars. No satisfaction showed on her face, only the cold efficiency of someone who'd performed necessary surgery. The purge is complete, reported VP Patricia Walsh. Jessica Williams, Gate Agent Thompson, Security Officers Reynolds and Martinez, Ground Supervisor Chen, and 3 supervisory staff, all terminated. Industry blacklist notifications sent. Maya turned from the window. Severance? Denied. They violated multiple company policies on discrimination and customer service. Through the glass, Maya watched Jessica's car sit motionless in the parking lot. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Maya's expression. Then it was gone. The brutal mathematics of change. CEO Martinez entered carrying crisis management reports, his face a mixture of relief and terror. Maya, the financial impact is staggering. He pulled up real-time data on the conference room screen. Stock price recovered 14% since announcing terminations. Booking cancellations dropped 68% in 4 hours. Maya studied the numbers with professional detachment. Long-term projections? Delta tried to poach our corporate contracts during the crisis. They failed. 3 major companies, IBM, Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, just renewed specifically because of our decisive action on discrimination. Martinez clicked to another screen. But there's pushback. The flight attendants' union is threatening to strike over excessive disciplinary action. Maya's smile was sharp as winter ice. Let them strike. How many other airlines would hire flight attendants terminated for racial discrimination? The technology hammer. Chief Technology Officer Sandra Kim burst in carrying a laptop, her face flushed with excitement. Maya, the new monitoring system is already catching incidents. She connected to the room's display. The screen filled with a real-time dashboard showing customer interactions across American Airlines' network. AI bias detection flagged 17 incidents in the first 6 hours. Discriminatory language patterns, service time disparities, tone analysis, everything gets scored. Maya leaned forward, genuinely interested. Specific examples. Kim pulled up a case file. Houston to Denver flight. Gate agent took 4 minutes to process a black passenger's upgrade, 30 seconds for the white passenger behind him. System flagged the discrepancy automatically. Response? Supervisor intervened immediately. Agent is now in mandatory retraining. Customer received full apology and meal vouchers. Maya nodded approvingly. Pattern recognition? Already identifying repeat offenders. Employee 47,291 has shown bias patterns in 8 interactions this month. She's been transferred to non-customer-facing duties pending investigation. The human cost. Maya's phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. I have 3 kids and a mortgage. 12 years of perfect service ruined by one mistake. I hope destroying my family was worth your revenge. Maya stared at the message from Jessica. Her thumb hovered over the reply button. Instead, she deleted it. Another message appeared immediately. You want to know the truth? I was having the worst day of my life. My mom was just diagnosed with cancer. I took it out on you and I'm sorry. But destroying my career won't cure racism. This time, Maya's finger paused longer before deleting. A third message. My daughter asked why Mommy lost her job. How do I explain that being mean to someone can destroy your whole life? Maya set the phone down without deleting this one. The industry earthquake. VP Rachel Torres entered with breaking news alerts streaming on her tablet. Maya, the ripple effect is unprecedented. Every major airline is implementing emergency policy changes. She pulled up social media feeds. Delta announced mandatory bias training for 80,000 employees. United is hiring an external firm to audit customer service interactions. Southwest just created a chief equity officer position. Maya walked to the window. Fear-driven or genuine? Both. They're terrified of viral discrimination videos, but the changes are substantial. The entire industry is transforming because they're afraid of becoming the next American Airlines. Torres consulted her phone. Congressional response has been supportive. Senator Warren tweeted that corporate accountability through economic pressure is more effective than legislative action. The unexpected consequence CFO David Kim entered with data that made him visibly excited. Maya, something unexpected is happening. Minority passenger bookings are up 43% industry-wide. He pulled up demographic analytics. African American business travelers specifically are choosing airlines based on discrimination policies. Your incident created a market opportunity. Maya studied the charts. Revenue impact? Massive. The discrimination-free airline market segment is worth an estimated $400 million annually. Companies are competing to be the most inclusive. Kim clicked to another screen. American Airlines is now the preferred carrier for 12 Fortune 500 companies, specifically because of our anti-bias policies. The personal reckoning. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from a verified account. At Maya Chen Williams, thank you for showing my teenage daughter that black women don't have to accept discrimination quietly. You gave her a role model. Dr. Keisha Williams, MIT. Maya read this message twice before responding. Tell her that power comes with responsibility. Use it wisely. Another notification appeared. My airline implemented bias training because of your story. Already caught 3 incidents this week. Change is happening. Captain Maria Rodriguez. Delta. Maya looked out at the parking lot. Jessica's car was gone. Chairman Morrison appeared in the doorway. Maya, the board wants to discuss long-term oversight of the cultural transformation. Maya gathered her briefcase. The systems are in place, James. Technology will catch future incidents. But remember, culture change requires constant vigilance. She walked toward the door, then paused. Discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's economically stupid. Companies that embrace inclusion outperform those that don't by every metric. Maya looked back at the room full of executives. Yesterday, American Airlines learned that lesson the hard way. Don't forget it. Maya's apartment, Upper East Side, New York. 6 months later, 11:47 p.m. Maya Chen Williams sat in her penthouse overlooking Central Park, scrolling through her phone in the darkness. The blue glow illuminated her face as she read message after message from strangers whose lives had changed because of Flight 447. My daughter saw your video and stood up to bullies at school. She said if Maya could fight an airline, she could fight mean girls. I documented discrimination at my job because you showed me how. HR fired my racist manager today. Thank you for proving that black women don't have to suffer in silence. But it was the message that came in at 11:43 p.m. that made Maya's hands tremble. I lost everything because of you. My house, my marriage. My kids won't speak to me. I hope it was worth destroying my life for your viral moment. Jessica Williams, Maya stared at the words until they blurred. She'd won the war, but carried the weight of victory. Her phone buzzed again. But I watched the video of you speaking at Harvard. You were right. I was wrong. Not just that day. For years. I'm in therapy now, learning about my biases. Maybe losing everything was what I needed to become a better person. Thank you for holding up a mirror. Maya's eyes filled with tears she'd held back for 6 months. The unexpected visitor. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Maya opened the door to find a young black girl, maybe 16, standing in the hallway with her mother. Miss Chen Williams? I'm Destiny Johnson. This is my mom, Dr. Angela Johnson. Maya recognized the name from Twitter, a prominent civil rights attorney who'd been amplifying the Flight 447 story. Destiny has something she wants to tell you, Dr. Johnson said gently. The teenager stepped forward, her voice shaking with emotion. Last month, a store clerk followed me around, assuming I was stealing. Before your story, I would have just left, embarrassed and angry. Maya leaned against the doorframe, listening intently. But I remembered how you stayed calm, documented everything, and used your power strategically, so I recorded the clerk's behavior and posted it online. Destiny's voice grew stronger. The store implemented bias training for all employees. They hired a diversity officer. They created a scholarship program for students like me. Dr. Johnson added, that's 12 stores in their chain, Maya. Hundreds of employees trained. Thousands of future customers who won't experience what Destiny did. The real victory. Maya invited them in, and they sat together in her living room overlooking the city lights. These real-life stories are what matter, Maya said softly. Not the corporate restructuring or the stock prices. It's touching stories like yours that show how Black stories can inspire systemic change. Destiny pulled out her phone. I started documenting bias everywhere. School, stores, restaurants. Other kids are doing it too. We call ourselves the Flight 447 generation. Maya's breath caught. The what? Kids who learned from your story that we don't have to accept discrimination. We have power. We have voices. We have cameras. Dr. Johnson smiled. Maya, you didn't just change American Airlines. You changed how an entire generation responds to bias. The call to revolution. Maya walked to her window, looking out at the city where millions of people were sleeping, unaware that their world had shifted. "I want everyone watching to understand something," Maya said, speaking directly to the invisible audience she knew was listening. "Power isn't about wealth or position. It's about refusing to accept injustice, even when fighting back seems impossible." She turned back to face Destiny and Dr. Johnson. "Every person watching this has experienced discrimination or witnessed it happening to others. Maybe you felt powerless. Maybe you stayed silent. Maybe you thought one person couldn't make a difference." Maya's voice grew passionate. "I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. One documented incident can change a company. One viral video can transform an industry. One person's courage can inspire a generation." She picked up her phone, still glowing with messages from strangers. "Share your stories in the comments. Document the bias you see. Refuse to be silent bystanders. Subscribe to channels that amplify these voices, because together we are building a movement." Maya looked directly at Destiny. "The Flight 447 generation is just the beginning. Every time someone picks on the wrong person, we respond strategically, collectively, and relentlessly." Her final words carried the weight of prophecy. Change doesn't happen because institutions want to evolve. Change happens because people like you refuse to let discrimination hide in the shadows. Maya smiled, feeling the weight of 6 months lifting from her shoulders. "Now, go make some noise."